What happens when the obsession with performance exceeds the boundaries of logic? This is the Ford Mustang GTD 2026, a monster specifically designed to completely blur the line between a muscle car and a supercar. The burning question is, can a race car built to break records possibly survive in our normal world? Stick with us to find out, and don't forget to like and subscribe to the DarkRPM channel to get all our new videos. This isn't just a Mustang, it's the pinnacle of performance, a $330,000 track-ready but road-legal machine that's here to raise the bar. Its engine can do this, its suspension can do this, and its wing can do this. On the racetrack, it can do this. Later in the video, Ollie will be pushing its limits on the track, and I'll be driving it on the public roads to see if Ford has built a Mustang that's just too extreme for the street. But first, Ollie Mirage has the Paul Ricard racetrack all to himself. We could start with a big silly drift, but let's put old-school Mustang values to the side for the time being, and just deal with what this thing is actually designed to do: fast lapping. Mustangs have always been engine cars, with the chassis sort of playing catch-up. You might think it's the same here because it's a 5.2-liter supercharged V8 with a dry sump and over 800 horsepower, so you'd think that's the star of the show. But I have a feeling this is going to be more about the chassis, because once you get Multimatic involved in a project, it changes the fundamentals completely. Right, let's go show you what it's all about by pulling up alongside a lesser Mustang. Well, this really tells you the difference, doesn't it? Look at the visual changes between these two cars. That one? It's definitely a Mustang. This one? Well, it's something else entirely. Let's start with the engines. I'll just pop the bonnet on the Dark Horse. This one is quite a driver's car. What we have in here is a 5-liter, naturally aspirated V8. But this is something else entirely. As you probably know, since you want to find out about this car, it has a carbon fiber bonnet. But the engine is a 5.2-liter supercharged unit. It's mostly taken from the GT500, but it's dry sumped. I know it still looks quite tall in here, but that's only because the supercharger is mounted up top. If you look at the height of the cylinder banks between the two, it's much more compact. It's still a big lump though. This car weighs 1,930 kilograms. It's not a lightweight. Anyway, let's walk our way around the sides because I want to talk about it. The front subframe is still the same. Multimatic had to use it, but look at how much extra body width has been added. This meant the entire front suspension had to be redesigned to balance out the weight. Whereas the Dark Horse has the gearbox mounted to the back of the engine for a 50/50ths weight distribution, the GTD has a rear transaxle, so the gearbox is now back there, not up front. And just look at what they've done back here. There's so much work that's gone into it. It's an entirely new subframe. They've redesigned everything. And that central chassis, although it is still from the Mustang, has had an immense amount of extra strengthening put into it with the carbon roof and panels to take the downforce generated by this wing and push it all through the ground. At 155 miles per hour, this develops over 600 kilograms of downforce. You know, that's proper GT3 RS levels of performance. It's quite a thing. Let's go. Off we go at 110 miles per hour, right? 120, 130. We have 1.8 kilometers to play with here. Just stick it in the middle of the straight and go. We're now at 155, a slight uphill finish. 160. The mirrors are vibrating. You feel it going 170, 175. We're going to just clip 180, I think, on this uphill section. 200 meters braking, 180, and wow. Those brakes are absolutely exceptional. I mean, it feels like a heavy car, but there's no denying the amount of grip and attitude it's got. It's just really eager and physical to drive. You feel it. Oh, I love this. I love the way the suspension is hopping around. We can actually stiffen it up a bit. Let's do that. It doesn't feel like any other Mustang I've ever driven. So much cornering force. Get it into third. The gear changes are sharp, they're fast, it hits through hard, this thing. It's not as locked down as a GT3 RS, and it's just starting to struggle under the brakes now slightly, but what a thing. You're aware in the slow corners that it can't quite keep up the pace. The grip overcomes it. There we go. But I now feel comfortable with it. I've got it moving. I'm happy at the limits of grip. And I love this sort of vibration, this tension going through it as you're at a really high speed. I'm talking 180 miles per hour approaching this corner, and then you just nail it. Wow, you feel that load straight on there. Well done, Ford. You built something really impressive with your friends at Multimatic. So, yeah, let's just do a cool down lap for myself as much as the car. I reckon it's a monster in a way, but it's a manageable monster. It feels very track focused, but there's a bit of weight to it, and you do notice that. Not so much under power, obviously, and the grip's really good. It's in the forces coming back at you. You're aware that there's a lot of assistance in this steering, so you don't get much natural feel from it. And the brakes again, they've got enormous power, especially when braking from 180 at the end of the main straight. They are phenomenal, but you don't have a great deal of sensitivity in them. The brake pedal, I'd like it to be a bit firmer underfoot. It feels like a big, quite heavy car that they've had to put a lot of management into to control. But honestly, the capability in it with all this suspension and everything is remarkable. It feels a world away from any other Mustang I've driven. It's more like an AMG GTR, but with more front-end bite. The balance in it feels better than it does in the AMG GT. It's properly a thing. I know we said we weren't going to start with skids, but that doesn't mean we can't finish with a few, does it? Fortunately, Ford furnished us with a fresh set of tires because it's time to find out if the GTD can handle the public highway. To be honest, I don't have massively high expectations for this thing as a road car, because when the brief for a car is based around a target lap time, in this case sub 7 minutes around the Nürburgring, that doesn't tend to breed a particularly good road car. It tends to breed lower back pain. But there are two things that are giving me confidence right now. The first is these seats. You would have thought with a car that has this much track pedigree, you'd have much deeper carbon shell bucket seats with harnesses perhaps. But no, the only seats you can get in the GTD are these Recaros. Quite squishy, lightly bolstered, a bit weird, and a bit lacking in support on the track, I can imagine. But here on the road, they're actually rather lovely. And I could see myself using this car every single day, and I didn't expect that. The other thing is that there is no roll cage. Again, you would expect one in a car of this type, but right now, I'm loving the fact that I don't have one because when I look in my rearview mirror, I've got a lovely view out the back, especially when the DRS flap in my wing is open, and I've got a nice little slatted, framed view of the road behind me. And of course, without any roll cage, you've also got a nice big space to put your luggage behind you, which is handy because the boot is full of the gearbox and suspension. Please like and subscribe to the DarkRPM channel to get all our new videos. Yep, you can't even fit a baguette in the boot of the Mustang GTD, but it does still have a boot lid of sorts. And I'll now demonstrate how that works with the help of my glamorous assistant, Ollie. So, the normal boot button, and then there are a couple of catches here. If you push those down, nice and firm, Morgan. Slick as you like, right? It's made of carbon fiber, as is all the bodywork on the car, of course. And what can we see under here? Not a lot, to be honest. A battery, a tire inflator kit, a couple of intakes for the transmission cooler, and definitely no boot space. But could we just give it up for how mental this car looks? The reason we parked it in the smallest, most awkward parking space in the entire world in the middle of this tiny French town is to show you what it looks like in the real world among the scooters, the cafe, and the locals. For me, this is even more mental than the GT3 RS. And I'll justify it because that might be quite controversial. The distance from a standard 911 to the GT3 RS isn't as far as the distance from the standard Mustang to this thing. So, it's that much more shocking, and it's that much more radical. Yeah, 330,000 pounds is quite a lot of money. It will cost 315,000 pounds when it goes on sale in the UK and Europe in left-hand drive only. But you're going to get more attention in this thing than you get in, say, a Bugatti Chiron, and that costs about 10 times more. Yeah, look how we're being swarmed. Can't keep them off the car. Guys, want to have a look? Alright, enough peacocking, time to find out. Is it drivable on the road? Okay, let's talk about this engine first then. 5.2-liter supercharged V8, similar to the engine you get in the F-150 Raptor R and the GT500, but here, it's got more power. 804 brake horsepower, a 7,650 revolutions per minute redline, and 202 miles per hour flat out. Don't worry, I'm not going to be troubling that last number today. But it is a lovely engine because from low revs, you've got all this tractability, there's so much torque, you can just surf it in any gear you want at low revs. And then when you put your foot down, this engine just cracks the whip. You hear the supercharger whine come in, and it just throws you back in the seat. And speaking of cracking the whip, this gearbox is superb. It's an 8-speed dual-clutch TME gearbox, and the shifts are just brilliant in either direction. Nice and smooth on the way up, there we go, 4th, 5th. But when you go down, it's got that lovely little blip, and they're so crisp and responsive. Second, third, oh, that little spit from the exhaust as well. The way this car sounds, I know if you're an American watching this, you're probably thinking, yeah, we're used to it. All these big-lunged Mustang V8s out there. But for us poor little Europeans, this is a very special noise indeed. Oh, just listen to it ricocheting off the rocks. It's absolutely wonderful. It's a massive FU to all those silent EVs out there, isn't it? Okay, so let's talk about the ride on this car because it has probably the most fancy, expensive suspension of any car I've ever driven. And it's got that feeling of being expensively damped. There is movement here, but there's only one bounce or one lurch and then it's back and it's under control. I really didn't expect it to be this comfortable, this usable. I thought it was going to be a headache and a backache driving this thing around, but none of it. The steering again, you've got so much car in front of you. I mean, that's no different to any other Mustang, but with this massive bonnet, you're always aware that this car is wider, 10 centimeters wider than a dark horse. But honestly, that's not really your concern because you can place the car really accurately. And the steering's got a lovely weight, a nice meaty feel to it that suits the car down to the ground. And the brakes, yeah, as you can imagine, top shelf Brembo carbon ceramics. I'm not even scratching the surface of them here today on the road. I'm sure Ollie got into them a bit more on the track. So the big question for me is, does this feel more special than other very powerful Mustangs? The GT500, right? That costs less than a third of the price of this thing. And you know what? If you're just driving it around enjoying that woofly V8 and squirts of acceleration here and there, maybe it feels quite similar. But you are always aware that you're driving something a little bit more special because in the rearview mirror, you can see that suspension on display. You can see the wing flicking up and down. You can just notice the extra width on the wheel arches. You can hear the noise. You can hear that gearbox just cracking away. So yeah, it's a lot of money for something that feels this special, but of course it's got that extra dimension on the track and where you really push on. It certainly looks special from the outside and it's doing the business here on the road. Again, I was expecting this to be a write-off. Too extreme for the road, too uncomfortable. Get me to the racetrack. But no, the Mustang GTD loves the public road too. That's a turn-up for the books. Okay, let's have a proper poke around this interior, shall we? Welcome to the interior of the Mustang GTD, which is quite a lot like any other Mustang. There are these seats, which we've already talked about. There's a smattering of carbon fiber and there's one big difference. The void behind me where the rear seats normally are. And then beyond that, the viewing window for your inboard pushrod multimatic adaptive spool suspension. That's a bit of a mouthful. Now, here's a safety tip for all you GTD owners. At no point should you tip your rearview mirror down so you can see said suspension jiggling about in that viewing window in your mirror. It is mesmerizing. It's massively distracting, and you will crash immediately into whatever's in front of you. Okay, so let me give you a tour of the buttons on the GTD's interior. You have your mode switch on the steering wheel here. We have normal, we have sport, which is probably the sweet spot for driving on the road, and then you have track mode. This will ask me if I want to drop the suspension instantly by 50 mm. That won't work because we haven't got the engine on at the moment. I'll keep going through the modes. Beyond that, we have drag strip mode with some pretty funky graphics going on here. Slippery mode for horrible weather conditions. Custom mode, which you can customize on the screen here. And we're back to normal. Then you've got a couple of shortcuts on the steering wheel as well. A suspension button here, which helps you flip between normal and a slightly firmer sport setting for the dampers. And down here, a button for the exhaust. So you can have normal sport track, which is maximum volume, or quiet, which should be illegal. So we're going to leave it in track mode, and if we move over here, there's a row of buttons down on the dash. This one here is for the nose lift. It will raise the front of the car pretty much instantly. This is the same suspension technology, by the way, as the Ford GT by 18 mm. Important when you're driving over speed bumps in town, or you might leave your carbon fiber splitter behind. Hazard lights, traction control, and this one with the horsey on it takes you to this page with various parameters that you can switch up. Track apps. This will let you use your acceleration timer, brake performance, lap timer, and launch control settings. You can switch your active arrow on and off. You can activate line lock, which again is to maximize burnouts. You can tell this car is American, can't you? And if we go back one, you've also got various things you can change here. Cluster theme. At the moment, we're in the normal theme. Or you can go to sport mode, which has a much bigger rev counter or track performance. Personally, I prefer normal. These paddles behind the wheel, they are made from 3D printed titanium that's salvaged from F-22 fighter jets. And so is this dial in the middle here, which is ridiculously cool, isn't it? Right. In terms of the startup procedure in the GTD, it's quite complicated, so pay attention. What you have to do is put your foot on the brake and press this big red button. Then all that's left to do is put on your seatbelt, turn the traction control off, and away you go. For a car like this to even exist, you need a CEO who's going to ignore the financial and logistical problems of bringing it into production and just keep on pushing it through. So a huge amount of credit has to go to Jim Farley, the CEO, for driving this car into existence. The original idea was to take a race car and not change anything for the street, but then they decided to add stuff that was outlawed in racing, which is why this is such a beast and why it's the kind of car that I love. Yes, it's a few seconds slower than a GT3 RS around the Nürburgring, but who cares? It's an event. It's a spitting, snorting fighter of a car. This thing is the antidote to EVs. It's the best of America, re-engineered to take on the European elite. And it's not just technically impressive, this car has a big heart and a big character. I know it's silly and preposterous, but it's also brilliant.